Okay, I'm gonna skip them for now. Let's go to something more modern again. This is a name I'm quite certain you've heard of. This guy is very famous for putting up monstrous numbers. We are talking about Wilt Chamberlain. Now, I suppose this is true about a lot of the names on this list, but some of this should maybe be taken with a grain of salt. Wilt was a basketball player, uh, widely considered one of the greatest players of all time. Just some of his most famous stats: he scored 100 points in a game, he averaged 50 points per game, he's led the NBA in points, rebounds, and assists. He's the only player to ever do that. Uh, Still holds the record for most career rebounds. And he actually retired pretty early in his career to go play with the Harlem Globetrotters. But we're not talking about that kind of ball today. And so the statistic that we're really going to lock in on is Wilt claims to have had at least 20,000 sexual partners, 20,000 unique sexual partners throughout his life. And the way that he comes to this number is interesting because Wilt was really, really statistics obsessed. He loved putting up big numbers. So Wilt kept a catalog of women that he had sex with. He called it his day timer. So it was like lifts, shoot arounds, and amount of women that he had sex with. The main things that he's keeping track of. Uh, so Will takes a 10-day sample from his day timer, and he gives a conservative estimate of new women per day based on this 10-day sample. And so he arrives at the number 2.3 new women per day, and he extrapolates that over 15 years to come to 20,000 partners. This is deeply problematic in a million different ways. This is just not how you do statistics. For one, if you've manually kept track of exactly how many women you have had sex with and exactly when and exactly who, then in theory it should be really easy to come to an exact number of unique sexual partners you've had. But we'll just say, fuck that. Let's do a 10-day sample and then extrapolate. 2.3 new women per day. This was before Tinder, right? Where exactly is he finding this many women? I don't think I've met 20,000 people. I've seen 20,000 people, but I've never interacted enough to even get their name, let alone fucking take them to the bedroom and have sex. This is truly fucking mind boggling. But there's a lot of people in his life who corroborate his story, at least to a certain extent. When he went to college, his friends start calling him the collector because he collects women, and he writes about this in his autobiography later in life. There's like lots of stories about, when he would go to track meets. There are lots of stories about when he would go to track meets in college because he also did track along with basketball. He's a fucking madman. But at track meets, there would be like droves of female fans like following the team bus. His teammates described it like groupies at a rock show. And when he talks about his days with the Harlem Globetrotters, he like really emphasizes uh, that he's not just getting stamps on a passport, and he's getting stamps in the bedroom too. He's very much a proponent of the flag game. I would really like. I don't think that this was even really a thing back then. Maybe it was, but he doesn't write about it in his book. I would love to know how many flags he managed to collect over the years. What's kind of interesting about Wilt is, for one, he never had any kids. This is 20,000 unique women, supposedly, over like a 45-year period. So, I mean, he either has truly the greatest pullout game of all time, or he should have had some fucking massive like endorsement contract with fucking Trojan condoms. Although maybe that would have been a net loss for him because he would have requested a lifetime supply, and they, you know, that's a pretty significant supply. I think it's kind of funny because at the end of his life, he starts getting like really introspective, really like self-critical. He died in like 1999, in his 60s. And in the interviews that he had, the last few interviews he had, he says at one point, "One woman 1,000 times beats 1,000 women once," which I think is really funny because Wilt never married. And literally like 5 years before, he had published his book and like bragged about how many women he had sex with like the whole fucking time. The only rationale that I can even come up with is that he started seeing like a bunch of his NBA records get broken. I think Karl Malone like beat his points record or something around this time. And so he was like, "Oh, this is one record I'd really like to keep. Let me just try to like dissuade everybody from ever following this path again." It's oh shit, what is this guy's name? Oh, there's like a really famous Roman dictator. I think he was called Cincinnatus. And he's famous for like basically just taking over Rome. He was like Caesar before Caesar, except instead of, actually trying to turn Rome into an empire, he like gave it up and made it very very difficult for anyone to take the same path he did in taking like absolute power over Rome, which of course didn't work for him. But there's sort of a similar vibe that I get from Wilt here, where it's just at the end of his life, he's like, okay, let me just like try to fucking lock this door so nobody can ever follow me again.